The last day of death row, inmate Anthony Wainwright. From prison escape to execution chamber. Hello friends, tonight we return to Florida, where the echoes of a 1994 escape still linger after 3 long decades. 2 men broke free from a prison in North Carolina, and what began as a desperate flight quickly turned into a nightmare for a young mother. Her name was Carmen Gayheart, a 23-year-old nursing student with 2 little children waiting at daycare. She never made it back to them. Instead, her path collided with 2 fugitives, Anthony Wainwright and Richard Hamilton, in a tragedy that would haunt her family for generations. Now, nearly 30 years later, Wainwright's time has finally run out. With his execution date set, the clock ticks toward his last hours on death row. What does it mean to wait 3 decades for justice? And what do those final moments reveal? Stay with us, and don't forget to subscribe to Deathwatch Diaries for more prison documentary stories from death row. It began in North Carolina at the Carter Correctional Center, a minimum security prison. Wainwright was 23 at the time, serving a 10-year sentence for burglary. Richard Hamilton, his older companion, was 31 and serving 25 years for armed robbery. Neither man seemed destined for reform, and both were restless behind bars. On April 24, 1994, the pair made their move. They slipped past weak security, and in a matter of hours they were free. Their first act was to steal a Cadillac, a symbol of their recklessness and their desperation. Not long after, they burglarized a home, taking with them 2 rifles. Armed and mobile, they headed south. It was a reckless road trip across state lines, 2 fugitives hoping distance would protect them. But as the miles rolled by, their hunger for survival demanded more, and Florida would soon bear the cost. On April 27, 1994, the fugitives reached Lake City, Florida. Their stolen Cadillac was either breaking down or simply too risky to keep. They needed another vehicle, something fresh, something no police officer would suspect. That morning, 23-year-old Carmen Gayheart finished her nursing class at the local community college. She was a mother of 2, married, building a new life with her family in what they believed was a safer town. She stopped at a Winn-Dixie supermarket, just blocks away from her children's daycare. With bags of groceries in her hands, she was only minutes from reuniting with her kids. But fate had other plans. As Carmen loaded groceries into her Ford Bronco, Wainwright and Hamilton approached. One of them leveled a rifle at her, and in that moment her ordinary day turned into a nightmare. Forced behind the wheel, she was ordered to drive 15 miles into a rural part of Hamilton County. The Bronco led the way, the Cadillac following close behind. There, in the isolation of the woods, Carmen's life was shattered. She was assaulted in the backseat of her Bronco, robbed, strangled, and then shot with the very rifle they had stolen. When it was over, her body was left among her scattered groceries, abandoned in a quiet stretch of forest. Meanwhile, her children waited at daycare, unaware their mother would never arrive. Her husband and family knew immediately something was wrong. Within hours, volunteers spread out, searching for Carmen and her Bronco. The entire town was shaken, desperately hoping she would be found alive. But Wainwright and Hamilton had already fled. They abandoned the Cadillac and took Carmen's Bronco, driving west into Mississippi. Their escape didn't last long. A state trooper, patrolling the highway, noticed the Bronco with Florida plates. He couldn't explain it, but something about the vehicle seemed suspicious. He began to follow. Inside the Bronco, Hamilton realized they were being watched. From the passenger seat, he raised a rifle and opened fire on the trooper. What followed was chaos. More officers joined the pursuit. A shootout erupted, bullets cracking through the air until both Wainwright and Hamilton were seriously wounded. Yet, they survived. Their escape ended not in glory, but in blood and steel bracelets. At the hospital, investigators from Florida arrived. The fugitives confessed to the crimes, though each tried to shift the ultimate blame onto the other. Who strangled Carmen? Who pulled the trigger? Each man pointed his finger at the other, but the details mattered little. DNA evidence confirmed that both had assaulted her. Witness testimony and their own words sealed the truth. The case moved quickly toward trial. In 1995, both men were brought before justice in Florida. The trial was unusual. There was one courtroom but 2 separate juries, one for each defendant. The evidence was overwhelming. Carmen's Ford Bronco had been recovered, The weapons tied them to the scene. Their confessions, though conflicted, left no doubt about their involvement. Both juries returned the same verdict, guilty of capital crimes. Both recommended death. And so, in 1995, Anthony Wainwright and Richard Hamilton were sentenced to die. For Carmen's family, the verdict brought relief, but not closure. Her father would pass away in 2013, never seeing the sentence carried out. Her mother, Joanne, and her sister, Maria, held on to their pain, unwilling to forgive, certain that only executions could balance the scales. As Maria once said, Carmen was the sweetest girl on the face of the earth. For them, forgiveness felt like betrayal. Richard Hamilton never reached the execution chamber. In 2023, nearly 30 years after the crime, he was found dead in his cell at the age of 59. The state never disclosed his cause of death, a silence that sparked rumors and suspicions. Some wondered if he had succumbed to illness, perhaps even the disease he once claimed to carry. Whatever the truth, his death in a prison cell meant his sentence was carried out by time itself. That leaves Anthony Wainwright, now 54. He remains on Florida's death row. His final date set for June 10, 2025. 30 years have passed since the day Carmen lost her life. 30 years of appeals, of legal maneuvers, of waiting. For the Gayheart family, it has been 3 decades of grief without relief, each delay reopening wounds that never had a chance to heal. As Wainwright sits in his cell today, the hours narrowing toward their end, one must wonder what thoughts occupy his mind. Does he replay the escape, the gunfire, the Bronco on a Mississippi highway? Does he recall the terrified face of a young mother who only wanted to pick up her children? Or has he grown numb after decades of watching other men led down the same final hallway? The execution chamber in Florida is sterile, brightly lit, and cold. Witnesses will gather behind glass, their voices hushed, waiting for the curtain to rise. Officials will ask him if he has any last words, if he has chosen a final meal. And then, the process will unfold with methodical precision. After 3 decades, the punishment handed down by a jury in 1995 will finally be carried out. In the end, dear friends, the case of Anthony Wainwright is a chilling reminder of how violence can ripple across generations. What began as a prison escape in 1994 ended in tragedy for a young mother who only wanted to finish her classes, pick up her children, and live in peace. For 30 years, her family has carried the weight of that loss, waiting for justice to finally be done. As Wainwright's final day approaches, the courtroom verdict from decades ago will at last be carried out. Yet no sentence, no execution, can ever bring back the gentle life of Carmen Gayheart or erase the pain her children endured growing up without her. This story forces us to ask what true justice means when the wounds are so deep and time so long. Thank you for watching this prison documentary. Don't forget to subscribe to Deathwatch Diaries for more stories from death row.